Another emotional week on Capitol Hill as victims.
We stand for Lexi, and as her voice, we demand action.
Lawmakers.
So this is challenging, Mr. President. There's no doubt about it. But we can do this. We can do this.
And celebrities.
So we got a chance right now to reach for and to grasp a higher ground above our political affiliations.
Are calling for action in the wake of the Uvalde mass shooting. But are the speeches, the testimony, and the surprise visits lending to change? We check in on the legislative action in the U.S. House, Senate, and Texas State Capitol. Doctors with a past still allowed to see patients in Texas. Gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke talks about his reform plan and eliminating campaign donors from the medical board. And startling updates on the state's foster care system. Why a federal judge is now threatening to hold state employees in contempt of court.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. The eyes of Texas were focused on Capitol Hill this week as lawmakers, survivors, and celebrities descend on D.C. Despite those visits and deadlines set by leadership, neither the House nor the Senate are any closer to sending gun reform legislation to President Biden's desk. We'll get into legislative progress from both chambers in just a bit, particularly the role Texas lawmakers are playing. But first, survivors and family members of victims of the mass shootings in Uvalde and Buffalo brought their testimonies directly to Washington this week, taking part in a House Oversight Committee hearing on gun violence. While lawmakers debate how best to shape policy, families are just hoping to keep their loved ones' memories alive and ensure no one else has to feel this pain. Capitol correspondent Monica Madden shares their stories.
Go high.
Speaking virtually before the nation's policymakers, 11-year-old Mia Cerillo recalled the horrors she saw on May 24th, hiding for her life as she watched her teacher and friends get killed.
Shot my teacher and told my teacher goodnight and shot her in the head.
Mia then did the unthinkable so that she would seem dead, too.
Thought he was going to come back to the room, so I grabbed the blood and put it all over me.
Her father weeping after the video.
Because I could have lost my baby girl. She's not the same little girl.
Mia was the first patient Dr. Roy Guerrero saw that day, Uvalde's only pediatrician.
But her whole body was shaking from the adrenaline coursing through it.
Other kids couldn't be saved.
Children whose bodies had been pulverized by bullets fired at them, decapitated, whose flesh had been ripped apart. Those mothers' cries I will never get out of my head.
Moms like Kimberly Rubio.
We don't want you to think of Lexi as just a number.
Her 10-year-old Lexi, among the 19 children who won't get the chance to see their dreams through.
Lexi would have made a positive change in this world.
Parents Kimberly and Felix went to Robb Elementary that day to celebrate their kids' achievements. They promised Lexi they would get ice cream to celebrate after school.
I left my daughter at that school, and that decision will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Now she promises to do everything to keep Lexi's memory alive.
Somewhere out there, there's a mom listening to our testimony, thinking I can't even imagine their pain, not knowing that our reality will one day be hers, unless we act now.
Monica Madden for State of Texas.
All Uvalde speakers asked lawmakers to do something in their remarks. While some pleaded for more security in schools, Lexi Rubio's parents demanded tighter gun restrictions. Kimberly Rubio said she wants to see a ban on assault rifles, high-capacity magazines, and raising the minimum age to buy such weapons to 21. So what have lawmakers on Capitol Hill done this week? The House of Representatives passed the Protecting Our Kids Act largely on a party line vote. The gun reform package raises the minimum age for buying a semi-automatic weapon from 18 to 21, prohibits the civilian use of ammunition magazines with more than 15 rounds, enacts new federal criminal offenses for gun trafficking and straw purchases of firearms, which is when an individual who is unable to pass a background check buys a gun through a proxy. Expanded background checks are not included in the House gun reform package. The chamber already passed the Enhanced Background Checks Act of 2021 and the Bipartisan Background Checks Act of 2021. Both of those bills are currently stalled in the Senate. In the upper chamber, negotiations on gun reform continue. A key player in those talks is Texas Senator John Cornyn. He spoke on the Senate floor twice this week, dropping hints about what could come out of the Senate, suggesting a narrow plan that includes more funding for mental health resources, incentivizing states to enact their own red flag laws, and expanding background checks. During a Senate floor speech earlier this week, he got specific about what exactly that could include.
I'm not talking necessarily about expanding the background check system. I want to make sure the background check system works. And what makes this challenging is Salvador Ramos showed up after his 18th birthday as if he was born yesterday. For purposes of the background check system, there was no insight into his many mental health challenges or terroristic threats of fellow students, potentially drug use, other things that if he were an adult, he could not pass a background check.
As a possible solution, Cornyn suggested the National Instant Criminal Background Check system be expanded to include relevant information if an incident happened when a person was a juvenile. He also mentioned a possible yellow flag when it comes to background checks, allowing time for further review of people between 18 and 21. Back home in Texas, the legislative response following the Uvalde shooting has been similar to reactions we've seen in the past. In 2019, state lawmakers created a Texas Children's Mental Health Consortium designed to identify distressed children and get them the care they need. Texas lawmakers poured $100 million into 13 health-related universities to form the consortium. One initiative is providing telehealth access through a program called T-Chat, but those services have not reached Uvalde yet. One psychiatrist who leads the Central Texas telehealth program at Dell Medical says continued outreach and funding are essential.
We are in a lot of our districts, but we could always be in more. And I think we don't have the funding to continue to increase because anytime we go into a school district, they utilize us. And we've seen the numbers grow each semester.
Out of the more than 1,200 school districts in Texas, these telehealth services are only running in 337 districts. Last year, lawmakers budgeted an additional $230 million over 2 years in both state and federal funds to expand the network's reach.
We've just had an agency that has failed to deliver, plain and simple.
And now there could be consequences. What the federal judge overseeing Texas foster care transition wants done if something doesn't change soon. A family of 5 is murdered after a dangerous inmate manages to escape during prisoner transport. What the Texas Department of Criminal Justice is changing for now in order to make sure it doesn't happen again.